Well, thanks so much, Garth, for that very kind introduction. It's just an honor to be with you all today. I'm just going to start with a quick introduction of myself and the research I've been doing, and then we'll get right into the keynote. So my company is called Diversity Research and Consulting, and we got funding in April of last year to research the intersection of artificial intelligence and education, specifically in Ontario. So we've been funded by the province directly. And we're going to be preparing a final research report with all of our findings, and that's going to be submitted directly back to the province, as well as available publicly online for everybody to read in just a few months' time. And we really have 4 research objectives with this research. So number 1, how is AI being used by instructors and students today? And to that end, we've actually been running a survey that we're going to talk about in a few moments a little bit more in detail. Secondly, we want to know what are the risks and benefits of using AI in education? Third, what are the best ways to use AI for teaching and learning? And finally, what kind of resources and training do educators need to leverage these new AI tools? So really quickly, if we could just get a show of hands in the room. How many of you have tried using an AI chatbot before? So something like ChatGPT or Copilot. Okay, so that's most people. You put your hands down. And secondly, how many of you have used AI in your work as an educator? So not just for personal or hobby use. Okay, so the majority of the room, that's great. So part of our survey, we were asking educators, how much have you used AI in your teaching? And in general, about 72% of people have tried using it in your teaching, so this room seems to be a little bit above that score. This chart got a little screwed up here. And there was about 28% of people who have never tried it before. And to explain a little bit more about this survey, so there was about 1,200 teachers from across the province. This is Ontario educators only, from the kindergarten to university level. This survey has been open since September, and it's open for just a few more days. So if you haven't had a chance to fill out the survey, the link is here. If you go to diversityresearch.ca, you can check it out. And you will be entered for a chance to win a $500 gift card, so that's a great bonus as well. And so getting back to some more survey data, this is the same kind of a question, but it's grouped by years of teaching experience. And what we're finding is that in general, new educators, those with less teaching experience, are more likely to be trying AI out in their teaching practice, and they're more likely to spend a little bit more time with it and identify as either proficient or expert users. We were also trying to understand how much does AI seem to help you in your teaching, and we were trying to get a sense for productivity improvements versus also quality improvements. And in general, we found there was a bit of a positive effect in both cases. So teachers reported positively that it was saving themselves time, but it was also enriching the quality of their teaching. So are you able to prepare better materials in the same amount of time? And again, the data here is grouped by years of teaching experience, so we're finding that those with a bit less experience are deriving more of a benefit, but that's also probably because this is the group that's more likely to spend a little bit more time trying out this technology. So why don't we back up for a minute and just talk about what is generative AI, or another term is large language models, and I'm going to be using those terms interchangeably throughout this presentation. So this is just a very high-level definition. We're not going to get very technical at all today, but it's a software that uses deep learning techniques and massive data sets to understand, summarize, and predict new content. And there's just a couple points here that we do want to follow up on in more detail. So first of all, let's talk about data. Critical to any of these systems is a massive amount of data. We're probably talking hundreds and hundreds of terabytes of data that gets scraped from the internet. And in general, there's very poor transparency from AI companies about what kind of data they're using to train their systems. And there's a couple reasons for this. The first reason is competitive. It's expected that the AI industry is going to be a $100 billion, or some people are even saying $1 trillion industry. And the belief is that by having either the most data, the best data, or unique training data sets to train your models, that gives you a competitive edge in this market. So companies are really seeing training data as like a secret sauce that they can use to develop the most performant models in the marketplace. So because of that, they don't want their competitors to know what they're up to. The second reason is for legal reasons. There's been a wave of litigation that started now because there's a lot of people who have produced content on the internet. These companies have consumed it into their models, and of course the content producers haven't been compensated. So there's actually a recent court case where the New York Times is suing OpenAI, the company who's developed ChatGPT, and that case is currently working itself through the court system, but because these companies don't want to open themselves to any other litigation, they're not going to talk about what websites or training data they are specifically using. But some of the sources are rumored to include things like Wikipedia, Reddit, Twitter, millions of web pages, online books, question and answer platforms like Quora or Stack Overflow. And so there's just some ethical issues around the use of this training data. We talked about content owners, but there's also a lot of low-wage labor that's get used in developing countries for labeling of data or for reinforcement learning. So they're the ones who are, as the systems will give them answers, and they'll label these are good answers or bad answers. And we're not really going to delve into that today, but just wanted to put that out there, something for you to be aware of. For us, our main concern today is really who produces most of the content that's in these data sets that gets fed into these models. So we don't have great data on who produces all of the content on the internet, but we do have some guideposts that we can use as examples. So actually Wikipedia tracks who are their contributors and editors to their website. And we know that it's about 80 to 90% written by males. The average age is 15 to 49. 20% are American, they're mostly from the Northern Hemisphere, and they're generally white-collar workers or students, very unlikely to be like a blue-collar type of person. So it's a relatively narrow viewpoint that we have going into these systems, and therefore what happens is often you get a very narrow output that's coming out of these systems. And here's just sort of an intuitive visual example of that. These are images actually from Mike Healy, who we're going to hear from later today. He used a system called Midjourney, which takes a text prompt and will generate some photorealistic images. So he used 2 different prompts, and he generated 4 images of each. So the prompt used in the left image here was a doctor giving instructions to a nurse, busy hospital hallway. And we didn't say anything about who this doctor is, but the system has gone ahead and assumed it's like an older male white doctor wearing glasses, and the nurse must be a female white younger nurse as well, just based on stereotypes that it might have seen in its training data. The prompt used on the right here was a polar bear wearing a tie, teaching a classroom of students in school uniforms. And first thing we notice is just how cute and handsome this polar bear looks with a tie on. It really suits him. And secondly, with these students, all we said is that they're wearing school uniforms. And the system has gone ahead and assumed that this is like a boys' prep school type of a situation. There's no girls here. There's no people of color either. So there's just like a visual example of the type of biased answers that we can potentially get out of these systems. And I don't want to get too technical here again, but all we really need to understand about large language models is they mostly work as text predictors. You can think of it like a super advanced version of autocomplete, where these systems are just predicting the next word or the next sequence of words as they go along. So in the example here, the system might start to write the cat sat on the, and then it would know that the next options could be table or chair or mat, and it would pick the one that has the highest probability of looking something like it's seen in the training data in the past. And it's just doing this on the fly as it's going. So it's a little bit like our friend from Wallace and Gromit here, where he's riding the train. He's just laying down track in front of him as he goes. So these systems are just kind of spitting out the next word as they go in like a word vomit type of a way. And at no point do they really stop and take stock of the whole answer that they've written and say, is this whole answer true? Does it actually make sense? Is it cohesive? And so because these things are just laying words down as they go along, they can get really sidetracked. They can go far off base into zones that we really wouldn't expect them to be at all. And this brings me to what are the risks of using large language models? So if you remember anything from my presentation today, I just want to leave you with this. When you're using these systems, just trust nothing and question everything. These systems are designed by nature to be a little bit creative. So they're not just copying and pasting, different words or sentences from training data and reassembling it somewhere. These systems are actually coming up with totally new sentences, totally new content that's never been seen before, even within the training data. So these systems need to have a little bit of imagination and creativity by design, and that's one of the critical settings in the back end of these systems that they control. It's called creativity or temperature. And OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, uses this term. They call it plausible sounding but incorrect or nonsensical answers. And often in the industry, these are called hallucinations as well. OpenAI also says their systems have no source of truth and they're vulnerable to leading questions and prompts. You can even ask these systems to give you references, like, give me a link to where you're getting this information or an article. But in my experience, about like half the time when you click on these links, they're just dead links. They don't go anywhere. They'll mention articles. You try to find that article, you can't find it anywhere. So you have to be very, very careful whenever you're using references or information directly from any of these systems. So here I've just mapped out some areas of things that these systems are generally good for. These are areas of lower risk and some areas of higher risk as well. In general, they're really good for any kind of brainstorming or idea generation, or if you just need a starting point to help you fight that blank page syndrome and just get you going. If you've got something really long and you want to summarize it into something short, it's great for that. Or if you've got something short and you want to expand it and flesh it out a little bit more, it's also good for that too. You can use it for editing, refining, rewording, generating alternatives, and then curating. So like if you were finishing off a quiz and you just needed 5 multiple choice questions, you might go to the system and ask it for 10 multiple choice questions, and you could kind of choose your favorite 5 and start to work with those. It's also really good for like a tone check. You know, if you're feeling a bit emotional and you're writing an email or something, you can copy that email, paste it into ChatGPT and say, hey, am I being a jerk right now? Like, could you help me maybe make this a little bit more polite, maybe a little more courteous? Some areas of higher risk that you want to be very careful when you're using these systems is any situation where you're expecting perfect results right away. Generally, what you got to do here is you kind of got to go back and forth with these systems a little bit and iterate and reprompt them for the best possible answer. Any situation where you're retrieving specific facts or information, anything where you need deep understanding or reasoning or differentiating between information or misinformation, these systems are not very good at that. They don't have a knowledge of very current or recent events. Some of these models now are able to search the web, but in my experience, they don't search as deeply or understand what they're reading as much as we think that they would. So you want to be very careful when using it for that as well. So as part of our survey, we asked teachers, what concerns do you have about AI? And unsurprisingly, the top 2 concerns was academic integrity, as well as AI discouraging students' critical thinking and research ability. And here, the different colored bars are different grade levels of instruction. So we saw really across the board that these were areas of concerns for teachers. We also asked what kind of training and support would help you as an educator. And across the board in every category that we asked about, we saw that there was really strong demand for training and resources. So I'm really thrilled to be here with the CIS. I really think this is a really important event to provide that kind of training and discussion for all of you here today. We also asked teachers, what percentage of your students do you think are using AI for their writing assignments? And in general, we found as you increase through grade level, the estimated proportion tends to increase and topping out between 50 and 60% at the college and university level. And on this topic, I just wanted to share some recent research, actually, that's just come out of Stanford. So they've been doing a survey for the last 15 years, asking students a number of questions about their home life, academics, and of course, academic integrity issues. So I'll just read here from the article. For years, long before ChatGPT hit the scene, some 60 to 70% of students have reported engaging in at least one cheating behavior during the previous month. That percentage has stayed about the same or even decreased slightly in our 2023 surveys when we added questions specific to new AI technologies like ChatGPT and how students are using it for school assignments. So there's been a lot said, I think, and written about this avalanche of academic integrity issues, but we're not yet seeing that in the data. Maybe next year when we do the survey again, we'll see that, but probably what's happening here is that these are students who are, maybe they were cheating in other ways like contract cheating or paraphrasing from the internet, and perhaps they've substituted into cheating with tools like ChatGPT. But we'll have to keep an eye on that to see how the research evolves. So one of the big topics today is how do we integrate AI into learning? We asked teachers, to what extent should AI be integrated? And just to explain this chart a little bit, the area in the middle, the blue area, is kind of like a neutral response. These are people who want to use AI occasionally in certain conditions. The red and the orange bars are more hawkish or anti-AI sentiment, like completely ban AI or use it only very rarely with tight controls. The green bars at the top is a more warm or embracing towards integrating AI, like using it in a variety of situations or fully integrating it. And what we find here is that educators with less experience are generally more in favor of integrating AI into education. But again, this is the cohort that is probably most likely to be using this technology or becoming proficient with it. And this is the same data here, but instead of years of teaching experience, we're grouping it by grade level of instruction. And what we find in general is that the post-secondary educators, they tend to be a little bit less neutral. They're more likely to have an extreme view, either completely banning AI or fully integrating it. So we also asked the group of teachers that are using it in their role as an educator, how are you using it? And the most popular uses were creating educational content, so things like questions, examples, diagrams, assisting with lesson planning, and automating administrative tasks. Here as well is just some examples of answers that we heard from some of the teachers. And I'm not endorsing or condoning any of these, but just to get your ideas flowing here. Some people are using it for assessment rubric creation. Others are using it for report card comments or using it defensively. So like if you're giving an AI or an essay assignment, teachers are taking that assignment, they're putting it in ChatGPT just to see the types of answers that they might expect to get from a student who is doing that. People are using it for creating on-the-fly examples, or they're making games and autonomous exercises for students that they can do at home. They're using it for automated marking of assignments, or they're using it as an example to show students what terrible writing looks like also. This last one we heard a lot, actually, detecting plagiarism by asking ChatGPT if it wrote something. So a lot of teachers, if they get an essay that's submitted that seems suspicious or might be written by AI, they'll copy that whole essay and they'll paste it into ChatGPT and ask, did you write this? And I just want to let you know that that doesn't actually work. Like, ChatGPT doesn't know, it doesn't even remember what it told you like 10 minutes ago, right? So it's not going to remember what some other user or student prompted it like 1 week ago. So I just want to call that as something that just doesn't work. In fact, that's one of the huge limitations of the technology. If you could do that, these systems would probably be a lot more effective. And maybe that will be coming one day. And just in the survey in general and a lot of the answers, we had a range of sentiment, ranging from extreme frustration all the way to optimism. So I just want to give you a little sampling of some of the comments that we heard. If academic integrity problems persist, I will be forced to return to in-person assessments, example, written exams at the end of the term, and cut out digital assignments to ensure academic integrity, as I do not have the time or the tools needed currently to manage any other way. Another person said, AI means that we don't have to struggle to problem solve or actually learn grammar and effective communication. There is value in struggle and practice, but those seem to be old-fashioned ideas. AI adds to our workload and makes me increasingly think of retirement. I don't want to sound old and stuck in my ways, but there it is. And on the other range of the spectrum, we also have some optimistic answers. AI cannot be ignored, and students will need to be educated on how to use it effectively to compete in today's world. I believe we need to embrace AI for the welfare of students. This teacher was talking about they were learning a new skill using AI and just talking about their experience. It was like I had a tutor right beside me every step of the way so that I could ask questions and put things into context that I understood. And finally, I've been integrating prompting skills into my grade 10 history class. There was always a component of incorporating how to ask better questions, but the change and improvement in the skill has never been as swift as I saw this year. I've noticed that by helping my students become better prompters, it is transferred as a continued skill outside of AI use. So those are some of the responses that we're getting through our survey. Again, the survey is still open. You can go to the link on your screen there. I want to thank you so much for having me here. This talk is a shortened version of an AI Essentials workshop that we've been doing at different schools throughout the province. So if you're interested in having something like this at your school, please come find me at lunch, or you can send me an email at this link here. So I'll pass it back to Garth.